June 6, 1944, 07:30 a.m., Sector Dog White, Omaha Beach. The ramp of the LCVP landing craft slams down into the surf, but there is no charging yell. There is only the mechanical, tearing sound of German MG42 machine guns, the terrifying Hitler's Zipper, ripping through the morning air at 1,200 rounds per minute. To the men of the 29th Infantry Division, this isn't a battle, it is an execution. The first 3 rows of men are cut down before their boots even touch the sand. The water around the ramp turns instantly, shockingly pink, then deep crimson. The air smells of salt spray, diesel exhaust, and the copper tang of fresh blood. You are 18 years old, you are carrying 80 pounds of wet gear, and you are watching your friends die in a way you never imagined possible. The invasion plan, the meticulous timeline drafted by generals in dry, warm rooms in London, has evaporated in seconds. The DD tanks that were supposed to provide cover, sunk. The aerial bombardment that was supposed to smash the bunkers, missed. The gap in the wire, non-existent. Those who survived the initial hail of lead scrabble through the surf, vomiting from seasickness and terror, dragging themselves toward the only cover available, a small embankment of stones known as the shingle. By 07:40 a.m., the invasion of Europe has ground to a bloody halt. Huddled behind that thin ridge of shale, thousands of American soldiers lie paralyzed. They are shivering, leaderless, and broken. Officers are dead, radios are smashed. The tide is rising, threatening to drown the wounded who are screaming in the surf. The psychology of the beach is simple and brutal. If I lift my head, I die. So nobody moves. The Atlantic Wall has done its job. The Americans are penned, and the German gunners in the concrete bunkers above are methodically shifting their aim, walking their fire down the beach, waiting for the mortars to finish the job. Into this catastrophe steps a 51-year-old man who has no business being on the first wave. Brigadier General Norman Cota is the assistant commander of the 29th Division. He is old enough to be the father of the boys shaking in the sand. He steps off his landing craft into a hail of bullets that splashes the water around his knees. He doesn't run, he doesn't crawl. He wades onto the beach carrying a pistol and a walking stick. Most generals command from the rear, watching maps. Cota commands from the front, watching eyes. And what he sees behind that seawall terrifies him more than the German guns. He sees the 1,000-yard stare. He sees an army that has decided it is safer to wait and die than to stand and fight. He realizes immediately that the tactical situation is irrelevant. The lack of tanks is irrelevant. The invasion isn't failing because of firepower, it's failing because of fear. And unless someone breaks the spell of paralysis in the next 10 minutes, the Allies will be pushed back into the sea, and the liberation of Europe will die on the beaches of Normandy.
The noise level is physically painful. It's a cacophony of exploding mortar shells, the thump, thump, thump of anti-aircraft guns turned horizontally against the infantry, and the screams of men calling for medics who are already dead. Most men on that beach are pressing their faces into the wet shale, trying to become invisible. They are praying to God, to their mothers, to anyone who will listen. But General Cota is doing the unthinkable. He is walking. Witnesses would later describe the scene with a sense of total disbelief. In a landscape where standing up meant a death sentence, Cota is strolling, upright, unhurried, moving from group to group along the seawall. He holds his .45 caliber pistol in one hand and a walking stick in the other. An unlit cigar is clamped firmly between his teeth. Bullets snap past him like angry hornets. They kick up spurts of sand around his boots. They ping off the stones inches from his legs. But Cota doesn't flinch. He doesn't duck. To the terrified private shivering in the sand, seeing a one-star general walk through a kill zone without fear creates a cognitive dissonance. It breaks the trance. If he isn't dead, the soldier thinks, maybe I won't die either. Cota knows exactly what he is doing. He is performing a calculated act of theater. He knows that courage, like fear, is contagious. He reaches a cluster of men from the 29th Division, huddled together, frozen. He kicks a soldier in the boot, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. "Who are you?" Cota barks, his voice cutting through the din of battle. The soldier looks up, eyes wide, stammering, "We're the 29th, sir." Cota looks down at them, his face smeared with soot, his eyes hard as flint. He doesn't offer them pity, he offers them a choice. "They're going to murder us here," Cota roars, gesturing toward the bluffs where the German muzzle flashes are twinkling like camera strobes. "They're going to kill every last one of us if we stay here. Gentlemen, we are being killed on the beaches. Let us go inland and be killed." It is a grim, dark invitation. Die here like rats, or die there like men. He moves on. He finds another group, the 5th Ranger Battalion. These are elite troops trained for high-risk assaults, but even they are pinned, their commanders dead or wounded, their cohesion shattered by the chaos of the landing. Cota approaches the senior officer he can find, Major Max Schneider. The conversation that follows will become legendary in the history of the U.S. Army. "What outfit is this?" Cota demands. "5th Rangers, sir," Schneider yells back over the roar of a mortar explosion. Cota leans in, his face inches from the majors. "Well, goddammit, if you are Rangers, lead the way." It is the spark that ignites the powder keg. The phrase, "Rangers lead the way," will become their motto forever. But in this moment, it isn't a slogan, it is a command. But commanding men to move is one thing. Giving them somewhere to go is another. Cota looks up at the bluffs. Between the shingle and the German bunkers lies a nightmare of barbed wire, landmines, and open ground swept by crossfire. There is no path. There is no cover. Cota realizes that waving a pistol isn't enough. Someone has to be the first one to step into the void. Someone has to show them that the impossible wall of wire can be breached. He turns to a Bangalore torpedo team, men carrying long tubes of explosives designed to blow holes in barbed wire. They are hesitating, terrified of exposing themselves to set the charge. Cota doesn't wait. He directs the placement of the charge himself, standing exposed while the fuse is lit.
8 a.m., the wire. The explosion of the Bangalore torpedo is deafening, a sharp crack that sends a shower of dirt and twisted metal into the air. For a split second, the smoke obscures the view. When it clears, there is a gap, a jagged, smoking hole in the concertina wire that has been trapping the American army on the beach. This is the moment, the fatal funnel. Every German machine gunner on the bluff sees the explosion. They know exactly what it means. They traverse their guns, focusing their streams of fire onto that single, narrow gap. The air in the breach becomes a solid wall of lead. To run through it is suicide. The Rangers and the infantrymen stare at the gap. They tense their muscles, but their feet won't move. The survival instinct is screaming at them to stay down. Then they see the general. Dutch Cota doesn't wave them forward from the safety of the shingle. He stands up. He walks to the edge of the breach. He turns his back on the German guns, an act of supreme disrespect and supreme confidence, and waves his walking stick toward the hill. "Go!" he screams. "Go now!" A single ranger stands up, then another, then a medic, then a radio operator. It starts as a trickle, then becomes a flood. Men are running, screaming, scrambling through the gap. They are falling, cut down by the machine guns, bodies piling up in the wire. But the men behind them don't stop. They jump over their fallen comrades. They are fueled by a sudden, violent release of adrenaline. They are no longer targets, they are soldiers again. Cota is right there with them. He isn't watching through binoculars. He is breathing the same cordite-choked air. He directs the flow of traffic, ignoring the mortar shells walking closer and closer to his position. One of his aides, terrified, grabs his arm. "General, get down! You're going to get hit!" Cota shakes him off. He points his stick toward a heavy machine gun nest halfway up the bluff that is chopping his men to pieces. "We need to take that house," he says calmly, as if discussing a renovation project. The first wave of men hits the base of the bluff. They are now in the dead zone, the steep angle where the German guns can't depress low enough to hit them. They are safe momentarily, but they are still trapped at the bottom of a cliff. Cota joins them. He looks up the steep grassy slope. It is honeycombed with trenches and rifle pits. He sees a young captain, confused and disoriented. Cota grabs him by the shoulder. "You," he says, "you see that ravine? Take your men up there. Don't stop until you reach the top." The captain nods, his eyes clearing. He has a mission. He has a direction. Cota is everywhere at once. He is rallying a mortar team to set up suppression fire. He is helping a wounded man find cover. He is acting as a one-man command post, transmitting his willpower into thousands of terrified men. But the battle isn't won yet. The Americans are off the beach, but they are still fighting uphill against an entrenched enemy who knows the terrain perfectly. And near the village of Villeville-sur-Mer, a stubborn German strongpoint is holding up the advance. A massive concrete bunker, immune to small arms, is spitting death at anyone who tries to crest the ridge. Cota looks at the bunker. He looks at his men, who are pinned down again. He realizes that the momentum is fading. If they stop now, they will be pushed back down the hill. He needs one final act of madness to break the line.
8:30 a.m. The bluff overlooking Sector WWII. The battle has shifted from the open slaughterhouse of the beach to the claustrophobic terror of the trenches. Cota is no longer just a general, he is a squad leader. He spots 5 American soldiers pinned down behind a hedgerow, suppressed by a German mortar crew hidden in a farmhouse. The men are exhausted, their face is gray with dust, their ammunition low. They look at the general, expecting him to call in an airstrike, to call for tanks, to do something officer-like. Instead, Cota turns to a soldier holding a Browning automatic rifle. "You," Cota says, his voice eerily calm amidst the explosions. "Cover me." Before the soldier can protest, the general is moving again. He circles wide, moving through the tall grass, flanked by 2 rangers. They maneuver with a speed that defies the weight of their gear. They aren't waiting for orders from HQ. They are writing the manual of urban warfare on the fly. They catch the German mortar crew by surprise. A short, violent burst of gunfire, the crash of a grenade, and the farmhouse falls silent. The barrier is broken. Suddenly, the Americans are cresting the bluff. They pull themselves up over the final ridge of limestone and grass, lungs burning, hearts hammering against their ribs. And for the first time in 3 hours, they look down. The view is apocalyptic. The beach below is a panorama of destruction, burning tanks, smashed landing craft, and the bodies of their friends scattered like drift logs in the surf. But they aren't down there anymore. They are up here. They hold the high ground. The psychology of the battle flips instantly. The German defenders, who felt invincible inside their concrete pillboxes, suddenly hear American voices behind them. The hunters have become the hunted. German soldiers begin to emerge from their trenches, hands raised, shouting "Kamerad." They look at the Americans with shock. They had been told the invasion would be stopped at the water's edge. They never expected to see these wild, wet, furious men standing in their rear. Cota stands at the top of the draw, chewing on his unlit cigar. He doesn't cheer. He doesn't rest. He checks his watch. They are behind schedule. He organizes a hasty perimeter. He grabs a radio operator. "Tell command we're off the beach," he says. "Tell them the exit is open." But as the adrenaline fades, the reality of their situation sets in. They are a small, isolated force, deep in enemy territory. They are low on ammo, and inland, the German reserves are mobilizing. Cota knows that taking the bluff isn't enough. They have to open the road for the tanks.
They have to take the town of Vierville-sur-Mer. He starts walking down the road toward the village, twirling his .45 pistol on his finger like a gunslinger from the Old West. It is a sight that will be burned into the memories of the men who follow him. As they enter the village, the streets are eerie, silent. Snipers could be in any window. But Cota walks down the center of the street. Suddenly, a rumbling sound comes from the west. Heavy engines, clanking tracks. The soldiers freeze. Is it a panzer division? A counterattack? They raise their bazookas, fingers tightening on triggers. Then, around the corner, a tank appears. It's a Sherman. It's the reinforcements from the 29th Division, who have finally fought their way off a different sector of the beach. The hatch pops open. A tank commander looks out, bewildered to see infantry already in the town. He spots the general standing in the middle of the road, dusty, bloody, and impatient. Cota looks up at the tank commander, takes the cigar out of his mouth, and delivers the line that encapsulates the morning. "Where the hell have you been?" Cota grumbles. "We've been waiting for you."
Evening, June 6th, 1944. Command post, Vierville-sur-Mer. The sun begins to dip below the hedgerows of Normandy, casting long, bruised shadows across the liberated town. The roar of the battle has dulled to a distant rumble of artillery moving inland. Down on the beach, the tide has gone out. It reveals the cost of the day. The sands of Omaha are a graveyard of burning steel and broken bodies. Over 2,000 Americans have been killed or wounded in just 12 hours. It is the bloodiest fighting of the entire invasion. But up on the bluff, the impossible has happened. The line holds. General Cota leans against a stone wall, finally allowing his shoulders to slump. He swaps his empty pistol magazine for a fresh one. He is covered in grime, his uniform is torn, and his walking stick is chipped from shrapnel. He has been awake for 48 hours. He has walked through enough fire to kill 100 men. Yet, miraculously, he hasn't been touched. Soldiers pass him, men from the 116th, the 115th, the Rangers. They don't salute, they just nod. The barrier between officer and enlisted man has burned away. To them, he isn't a general anymore. He is the man who carried the soul of the division up that hill. Reports start flooding in from other sectors. Easy Red is open. Fox Green is secure. The chaotic, terrified pockets of men Cota rallied at the seawall have transformed into a cohesive fighting force that is now pushing the Germans back into the bocage. Military historians will later analyze Omaha Beach for decades. They will talk about air superiority, naval gunfire, and logistics. But the men who were there know the truth. The battle wasn't won by a strategy room in London. It was won by a gray-haired man with a cane who refused to let them die on the sand. As night falls, Cota doesn't sleep. He organizes the night defenses. He checks the perimeter. He prepares for the counterattack he knows is coming at dawn. He lights his cigar. The flame flickers in the darkness, a tiny beacon in the newly liberated Europe. Epilogue: The Shepherd. August 1944. Paris, France. 2 months later, the 29th Division would march down the Champs-Élysées to liberate Paris. Leading the parade, once again, was Dutch Cota. But the legend of Omaha Beach would follow him forever. In a war defined by industrial slaughter, by massive bombing raids and millions of artillery shells, the story of Norman Cota stands out as a testament to the individual human spirit. On a morning when technology failed, when tanks sank and radios died, leadership was the only asset left.
Cota proved that one man, standing tall when everyone else is lying down, can turn the tide of history. He would survive the war, retiring quietly, but he never considered himself a hero. When asked about D-Day, he would simply say that he was doing his job. But the men of the 5th Rangers and the 29th Infantry knew better. They knew that without the old man with the walking stick, they would have remained pinned behind that shingle wall forever. General Cota gave them an order that became a motto, but more importantly, he gave them a future. He showed the world that when the fires of hell are burning in front of you, you don't wait for permission, you don't wait for tanks, you stand up, you lead the way.